All right, welcome to the virtual coffee lab. My name's Mike. I'm so glad that you're here today. I've got a couple little notes to make as people start to come into the stream. We've got 11 people so far in here. Welcome, you guys. It's so great to have you here. Can you hear me? Share that in the comments if you can hear me. And we'll get started here in just a second. Also, you should know that if you want to chat with me, you need to be a subscriber of the channel. And I'm doing that because I'm just trying to keep the channel safe during our chat, just to keep spam, that type of thing out. Sometimes there's automated stuff that shows up. So that's why. If you don't want to stay subscribed after, you can unsubscribe. All right. So yeah, just need a sound check. Yes, you can hear me. Awesome. Okay, that's great. Well, you guys, I've got some great things to share with you today here on the channel. I'm also going to have a Q&A time for you to ask some questions. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask, we'll get to that. You just need to, in the chat, if you could say in capital letters question, and then ask your question. That way it'll stand out for me to be able to see here. Okay, let me say hello to a few people coming in here. We got Sabbath Coffee Roasters. Wow, that's exciting. Hey, Trevor, how you doing? It's great to have you here on the channel. Trevor has been a great supporter of the channel here. He's an awesome dude, and he's got a great cafe. He started out on a Behmor as a home coffee roaster, and now he's roasting thousands of pounds of coffee and selling it, and it's a great quality cup of coffee. He's doing a great job. So thanks, Trevor. All right. We've got Luigi. Lou was on one of my videos. Lou, it's good to see you here today. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Virtual Coffee Lab and supporting me. That's awesome. Thank you. Lou is a roasting brother, and he's got a Behmor. Started out on a Behmor, and he's roasting on a bullet right now. And he's roasting some great coffee on the bullet. So today what I wanted to do was share a little bit of my experience from the SCA, the Specialty Coffee Association. And that is an organization that is devoted to specialty coffee in itself. It was an independent, like a U.S. organization. Europe had one as well, and they both joined forces in 2017. And what they do is they support the industry, the specialty coffee industry. And whether you know it or not, home coffee roasters, most of us are involved in that industry because we are consumers of that product. But the Specialty Coffee Association goes much further than that, all the way down to the cafes and the baristas, and they support with resources, training, tools, and so on. And I actually participated in some of that training at the SCA, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. Okay, you guys are able to hear me okay? Awesome. Okay. All right, so I wanted to share a little bit of a slideshow. I've got a few pictures that I wanted to share with you just to give you an idea of what the SCA Expo was all about and the experience that I had there, and then we'll also deal with some of the chat and some of the questions. Okay. All right, so let's get to the slideshow. And again, if you want to participate in the chat, please subscribe. You need to do that in order to go ahead and put something in the chat. You need to do that. Also, if you could right now, it would be really helpful. Hit the like button. That would be awesome. If you could do that, that'll help more home coffee roasters have my live feed show up in their feed and join the show here. So that would be great. We've got 12 people in on the live stream, and honestly, I had no idea. I was joking with Lou earlier that he might be the only person here, and so it's great to have you guys show up. I really appreciate you being here. So I want to share a little bit of my experience at the expo with you. I live in the Midwest. I live in Michigan, and I flew out to Oregon, and that's where this year's expo took place. And it's a long travel. and but it was definitely worth it. So it took place at the Oregon Convention Center, and we had some of my boys, my family, came out with me. These guys actually did this for me as a birthday gift. They took me out here, and we were able to share this experience together. It was really, really cool. Speaking of Sabbath coffee roasters, when you walk into the expo and you see these, there were hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of people in this opening way waiting to go into the exhibit. And alongside are these brewing, automated brewing systems, and they highlight various coffee roasters that are part of the SCA. And Trevor, with Sabbath Coffee Roasters, had his coffee, a couple of his coffees highlighted, and so that's what that machine is there on the right. Trevor is really making a name for his brand, and that's awesome. The expo itself, when you walk in, it's a trade show floor with just hundreds of exhibitors, and it's everything to do with roasting, brewing, grinding, cupping, software, point of sale systems for cafes. They had everything there. This is a guy that is trying to market a robot that does pour overs. I mean, they just had some very unusual things on display there. Traditional roasters, they had those all over the floor on the show there. This is a new roaster that's being offered from Alio. And this is something that you may have started to see online, larger capacity roaster. It's definitely an automated roaster. So that was really cool to see. And all along the way, one of the things that I plan on doing was seeking out resources for home coffee roasters. That's what I wanted to do. And I've got a lot of people that I've met that I'm trying to network with to help bring some great offerings to you guys. I've talked to a couple of different companies about coffee greens, fresh greens where you can order that you normally wouldn't be able to order from. People that are normally offering larger bulk sizes, and we're trying to get smaller sizes for the home coffee roaster. The resources we have now are really good. I'm using some really good greens sources for home coffee roasters, but it's always nice to have other options, other opportunities. Okay. 1 second. All right, back to the slideshow. All right, so yeah, there was the bullet that we saw as well, and I'm hoping to be able to use a bullet and roast that. I know there's many of you that are using the bullet right now and would like to see that roasted on the channel, so we're hoping to do that. There's some other brand new roasters on the market. This is a Link roaster. This is kind of in the same offering as the Ikawa roaster, but it costs a lot less. I actually watched a demo of this where they roasted coffee right in front of me. They ground the coffee and then they served it to me. No resting time, and it was a really good cup of coffee. And it's a great way to sample. So if somebody has a roastery, this is the kind of thing they're looking for. But it's an automated system where you can create profiles just like the bullet. Just like the Ikawa. The bullet does that too, but it's pretty cool. That was really cool to see. There are some new roasters that are coming out. This is a brand new one that is just starting to be offered. It's the Behmor, I think that's how you pronounce it, Behmor roaster. And this roaster is up to 250 gram capacity. This is something that would be great for a home coffee roaster that does not want to have to do manual roasting. You can create a profile, or it has many profiles. I even saw them scan a bag of coffee, pre-packed coffee that had one of their QR codes, so it knew what type of coffee it was. It pulled up a profile, and then they would go ahead and roast that coffee. That was really cool to see. They also had vendors there. This is Royal Coffee's booth, and Royal Coffee is one of the places that I get coffee greens. I mentioned them in one of my videos on where you can buy great green coffee, and Royal is one of those. I buy their Crown Jewels. You should check that site out. They've got some really good resources for the home coffee roaster. And I also met some really large importers. This is Cafe Imports, and they had a lot of people at their booth, and I had an opportunity to talk with them as well. We'll come back to the chat here in just a second. I just wanted to see oh yeah, okay, so Trevor is commenting that he saw the link and he wants one. Ugh, I desire it. Yeah, that's exactly right. It was pretty cool. And I think it's like around $1,800 for the link. I think that's right. The link is a fraction of the price of the Ikawa. And when it comes to dollars and cents for cafe operators, this is something that they're thinking about. Let's see. Trevor's also asking, who was the most handsome roaster you had the chance to meet at the expo? Trevor, you are the ringer there, buddy. Thanks for asking that. The expo was a great opportunity for us to meet all kinds of different vendors. And there were a lot of people there. And it wasn't just vendors that were trying to, well, everybody was trying to sell something. We had coffee galore all over the place to taste. They had these tents set up, and they may have been, a lot of these were promoting the origin. So like an Ethiopian coffee, something to that effect. So there were some really good coffees. There were a couple that I didn't think were that great, but it was a lot of fun to be able to see that. And there were a lot of people. I think there were 13,000 people that attended. At least I know it was 13,000 a day, or maybe it was 13,000 total. It was a lot of people at the convention center. But the convention center was only one part of the specialty coffee experience. And why am I sharing this with you guys? Because this, I'm sharing it with you because this isn't just people that own coffee shops. This isn't just a show for people that are looking to buy large roasters. There were home coffee roasters that were going to the expo. I actually met one of our channel viewers here who was checking the expo out. He's a home coffee roaster from Minnesota, and he traveled out to Oregon to check out the show. There's also workshops. The SCA is all about education, and we attended a workshop that was actually put on by Scott Rayo, and he is a consultant. Most of you have heard of Scott, and this was his master class, one of his master classes that we attended. It was very interesting. What's really interesting is here I am, a home coffee roaster. I'm sure there were others that were there that wanted to learn like I did. And then not too far away from me, there are people that own some really well-known coffee shops that are there to either support Scott or to learn from Scott. And that was really cool. We went to a coffee shop that served some of the best coffee we've had. It was Hart out in Portland, and he was attending that class, more or less, I think, to support Scott, but it was really cool to see him there. So I learned quite a few things from Scott about my home roasting, but one of the things that I learned is that there are so many different types of coffee roasting devices out there, and each one has its own unique nuances that cause us to have to roast our coffee maybe a little different. Maybe it's because of some of the advantages, technological advantages that the roaster has, or maybe some of the deficiencies. Mr. Rayo was talking about some specific roasters that were known to have certain weaknesses, and so he talked about ways to compensate. That was really interesting. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I heard from Scott was dealing with airflow and what he suggested for airflow, and I'm going to be experimenting with that, and I'll share those results with you guys here. The other workshop that I attended was the profiling workshop. I was really excited about this workshop because I wanted to learn more about how making changes to our roast profiles influences the cup. That was my goal. And I think what happened was the presentation was really good. Most of the things that were discussed there, we've been talking about here on this channel. And so we did get some hands-on experience. They used the Ikawa roaster, which was okay. I guess it saved us time. Maybe it didn't save us time, but it gave us a chance to get to know some of the people we were roasting with. There were 9 of us sharing this roaster together. We roasted 4 different cups of 4 different roasts, and then we cup them together. And so here you see us cupping the coffee. And Trevor was involved in this group here. And it was really fun to be able to do this. My son and I were there. But I wanted to show you guys somebody that we met. We met all the people in our group and some others. We did some networking. But I wanted to share this story with you. This guy was in our group. His name's Muhammad. And so as we went around the group and we were talking, hey, what's your name? You know, where are you from? What are you roasting on? Muhammad is currently living in Maryland, and he's been there for 20 years. And he is originally from West Africa. And he was sharing his 20 years of experience roasting coffee. And he's using, I think it was a Probat he said he was using. And then he called it an 800. And we were a little confused. And he basically was saying he roasts 800 pounds of coffee per batch in this giant industrial roaster. So much coffee that they actually have to shower water on the beans as it comes out to quench the beans to cool it. And it was amazing to hear some of the things that Muhammad had to share. And so the question to Muhammad was, why are you here? If you're roasting all this coffee, why are you here in this room with us? You know, people that roast on, 500 gram roasters, or roast on something even smaller than that, a couple 100 grams at a time. And there were others that had larger roasters, 10 kilo roasters and so on. And his response was he wanted to be like us. He wanted to not just roast coffee in an industrial setting, but he wanted to craft coffee, and he was there to learn how to profile and craft some great specialty coffee. And I think that's really what the conference was all about. That's what our goal was, at least on the roasting side of things. There were barista championships. There were roasting championships taking place. This is our workshop group here. There were about 50 of us. And here's one of the viewers that I met here from our channel. His name's Steve. It was cool. I met several people that watched my videos, and that was really humbling, really cool. And then my last slide here is one of the coffee experiences I had was going to not Sweet Maria's, going to Proud Mary Cafe. Proud Mary is a roastery. Their origins are in Melbourne, Australia, and it's one of my favorite coffees. If I'm going to not roast my own, but drink somebody else's coffee, other than Sabbath coffee, Proud Mary is one of my favorite coffees that I'll drink. So we went to the cafe they've got in Portland, and we had some unbelievable coffee. They ground it and brought it to the table in a stainless steel cup for us to smell, and then they brewed it for us. And that was really quite the experience to be able to see. That was really, really cool. And I'm so glad that I had that opportunity in Portland to be able to experience all of that. Okay, let's get back to the comments. Trevor's sharing some love here. Thanks, Trevor. And Eric saying good afternoon, saying hello to everybody. Thanks, Eric, for being here. I really appreciate it. Trevor, it's okay that they are way cooler than us. Who's way cooler? Proud Mary? Never. All right, Lou. Man, their Mexican you sampled me was fantastic. Yeah, so Lou lives near me, so I had a chance to actually get together with Lou. We roasted some coffee together, but I happened to have some Proud Mary coffee that I shared with him, and he can attest it's really some great coffee. I like their marketing. I like the way that they classify their coffee. Their anaerobics, they classify as wild, and then there's the curious that might be more like a natural. And then there's the mild, which is just a standard coffee. And that's what this is here. This is an El Salvador washed that I've been enjoying that I got there when I was out in Portland. So pretty cool stuff. All right. Okay. So if you've got questions about home coffee roasting, go ahead and ask those questions. We can get into that if you're interested in talking about that. If there's anything else you want to discuss, go ahead and do that. And while you're doing that, I just wanted to let you know that I think that the SCA event is an opportunity. If it's in your part of the country, I would say give it a shot and go check it out. Go try it out. You'll find some really cool coffee stuff, whether it's tools, whether it is some latest roasters coming out on the market, just some really cool stuff. So I would encourage you to at least try it once. Also, their workshops are things that will really be helpful. And I think that I've learned something from them. I'm really excited to try out some of the different suggestions that Scott Rayo mentioned. Even talking with my son who attended that workshop with me, we were kind of excited to give that a try. He's really into between batch protocols, so going from roast to roast to roast. And I've had that experience. Well, I actually have that experience every week when I roast coffee. We roast coffee for our church, and so I'm doing several batches of coffee in a row. I did experiment with Scott Rayo's suggestion, and I was happily surprised. But I want to kind of look into it a little further and then share that with you as well. Okay. Sabbath Coffee Roasters. Trevor saying that next year it's in Chicago. So you guys that are in the Midwest should check out the SCA event in Chicago. You should definitely at least go to the expo and you should check that out. All right, another question, Lou. If many vendors were roasting, how did they handle venting, or was it just a smoke-filled room? You know what? There wasn't any smoke in the room. I showed you two different roasters, the Link and then that Bunifer roaster, and neither of those roasters smoked. There was really no smoke. There was another one I roasted on, the S7. I did a video on that. I'm hoping to share it on the channel. I'm not really happy with the audio, but I want to share that experience with you guys. And this is a roaster that was roasting, probably about a pound and a half of coffee. They did a smaller batch. It's the S7 by Stronghold. And they have a filter system built into it. So the venting goes through a filtration system. There is no ductwork anywhere. And there was no smoke. During my whole roasting session, there was no smoke. So I was really shocked, really pleasantly surprised about that. It's pretty shocking. But that's what most of us want. We want to have a roaster that doesn't have any smoke. We're either in apartments or places that require that. Our smoke detectors might be sensitive, and we don't have a way to vent. So I get that. But yeah, no smoke, not a smoke-filled room at all. I've got video of the show floor. It's just the system that I'm using here. And maybe this isn't really quite the place to be able to do all of this to show you some of the video. I'll try to do it in one of my upcoming videos where I may include some more highlights from the trade show. But that was really cool to be able to check out. So yeah. All right. Another question, two of each. Which roaster is best for a beginner? Yay for Chicago. Yeah, so best for a beginner. So new roasters for home coffee roasting. The exciting news is that there are choices. There are good choices for us to learn how to roast coffee. So I would say first, it really depends on where it is that you're roasting. So if you have restrictions, let's say you don't have natural gas, maybe you just have electricity, that's going to maybe limit you a little bit depending upon the size of the roaster you want. Maybe your venting isn't really good and you want something that's going to produce less smoke. Or maybe you want more of a drum roasting experience, or maybe you have a hot air popper and want to go down the road of air roasting. So to answer your question, which is the best roaster for a beginner? I think it depends on where you're going to be roasting the coffee. Next is the type of coffee and how dark you're going to be going. Air roasters are really good for light coffee. So if you like light and fruity coffee, you might want to consider an air roaster like a Fresh Roast SR 540 or 800. That would be a great option. If you are interested in you're fascinated with the drum roasting idea, then a Behmor would be a consideration. I know that there are crowds on both sides that say this one roaster is better than the other. But honestly, you heard me say it earlier in the stream, and if you didn't, I'm going to say it again. The Behmor kind of is that crossroad over into drum roasting experience a little bit. So yeah, I'd say the Behmor is definitely a consideration if you want to go that route. I've roasted some great coffee on the Behmor. Sabbath Coffee, Trevor, that's here on the channel, he roasted. That's how he started out, roasting coffee for his business, and that's what was able to move him up into roasting on a drum roaster. So definitely something to think about. The Stronghold roaster that I roasted on, and I'll have some video of this in a future upcoming video, is an air roasting system, sort of. It's not really an air roaster. It's not a drum roaster. It's kind of this hybrid where you have kind of a tumbling, it's not a drum because it's vertical, and they use air to a lot of convection to be able to roast. But I'm getting off topic here. Just to answer your question, I think the Behmor 2000 is a great roaster, and the Fresh Roast is another great option. Those are the two that I would start with. If you want to do something by hand, there's a roaster that's excellent that I love, but it's just really hard to get right now, and that's the Hive roaster. It's a hand roaster. It's kind of like if you think back to Jiffy Pop popcorn, there's that popcorn with the dome and then the handle. It's kind of something along that line where you're roasting over a flame, and it roasts some wonderful coffee. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. All right. If you want to share any of your comments, go ahead and do that here. Let me just check to see if there's anything new. And I think that is it. So I guess since I've got you here on the channel, I've got 16 of you here. Thank you so much for joining me today. One of the things I wanted to ask, I've been doing these videos now for a couple of years. If you have suggestions of a format, something you'd like to see me do different, not necessarily the topic, I guess that would be something else that you could suggest as well. But whether it's the topic or whether it's the format, the way that these videos are being produced, if you could share those with me, you can do that here in the chat if you want to do that, or you can send me a message through my Facebook Virtual Coffee Lab channel, or you can also do it via the YouTube page. If you go to my YouTube channel, the homepage of my YouTube channel, go to the About tab, you'll see a way to contact me there. I go through and spend quite a bit of time preparing these videos, and I'm hoping I get some comments, I get some good feedback, but it's always great to be able to hear some of the things that you're thinking about and some of the things that you'd like to see. All right, George. Hey, George, how you doing? Glad to have you here on my channel, the live stream today. Thanks so much. Very new to roasting. I like a dark roast. It's imperative that dry end comes close to 5. Is it close? Is it imperative that dry end comes close to 5 minutes? Mine takes about 6.5 minutes. And should I be applying more heat? That's a great question. That's a really good question, George. So it's hard for me to be able to express the exact way to roast coffee. So in my videos, I may share examples, and I do that as a starting point. The Behmor is very difficult to get a 5-minute dry time. There's nothing wrong with 6.5 minutes. The Behmor is kind of known for that. What I would suggest is maybe not roasting like a whole pound. You might be roasting a half a pound of coffee, and I think that's great. 6.5 minutes, it sounds like it might be a half a pound of coffee. I would consider pre-warming your Behmor. Have you watched any of my Behmor videos? I've got a playlist you can check out that shows some of the different ways that I do that. But yeah, usually they're longer than 5 minutes. If you want to try for a 5-minute dry, then you can do that with just roasting less coffee, less weight. But the 5 minute really isn't something that you should focus on. 5 minutes is easy because it's easily, it's half the roasting time of a 10-minute roast. It's a great way to get started so that you can get in this roasting range of some really flavorful coffee. You like your coffee darker, and so the Behmor would definitely be a great roaster for you. You're using the roaster. That's the right roaster to use. And I think what you're going to need to do, in my videos, I usually roast medium. And so the difference for you is you're going to want to continue on with the power a little longer into your roast, and then start to taper it down. But you're going to need just a little more power to push your way through to a darker roast. Are you going to second crack? That would be something that I'd be curious about. So it's not imperative to get to a 5-minute dry. What's really important, and one thing that really helps, is to be able to have enough time for development. So when you're roasting your coffee and you're in this dry phase, there's not a whole lot happening with flavor development at that point. Where the flavor development begins is after dry. But what the dry phase does is it sets you up for success as far as momentum goes. And so especially on this drum roaster, I have to have enough momentum to get me through the roast, enough energy to get me to dry, and then work my way down to first crack, and then depending upon how far I want to go into the roast. Same thing with the Behmor. You're going to want to have enough energy. You don't want to back off on your power too soon as you start heading towards or get to first crack, but you don't want to have so much power that you fly through first crack and second crack begins. There's kind of this fine line, and you're going to have to figure that out. And so a 6.5 minute, if you're getting to dry in 6.5 minutes, then I would consider probably having about a 3.5 to 4 minute, well, probably a 4 minute period of time from dry end to first crack. And then from your development, you're going to want to take that as dark as you like. Color is king. That's what you're going to want to be looking at. So you're going to want to have an LED light to really get a good look in there and see the color of your coffee, and also be listening for the crack as well. All right. So George, you're using a Comrade roaster. I do go to second crack, 460. Okay. So you're going dark, and that is a drum roaster, isn't it? I think that's a drum roaster. So yeah, just like I said, you're going to want to have enough momentum to be able to do that. 460 degrees, that's kind of hard for me to figure because we're talking different roasters, but that's definitely dark. So yeah, so for you, the amount of time to get to dry is important. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Okay, some other comments. Sabbath Coffee, I love the content you make. We need more home coffee roasters. Yeah, you know what? Let me share a little bit. That's a great point. Let me share with you why I'm doing this channel. I would not have done this channel if it wasn't for a really well-known YouTuber that's into coffee, James Hoffman. And there was a point in time where he had an offer to highlight some people to basically have a video on his channel. They would produce the video, he would show it on his channel. And the whole idea was to create more space there's so much open space in this field of coffee, specialty coffee, that we need more creators. And then I started thinking, well, what do we have for home coffee roasters? People actually roasting coffee on YouTube. And there weren't really many. We're watching professionals roast, and that's helpful, but we're not necessarily seeing the small roasters. And so that was one of the reasons why I did this. I wanted to be able to be a person as a resource, not necessarily the only resource and not necessarily the best resource, but I wanted to share my journey with you because I'm a home coffee roaster. And I want to let you know what I'm doing. And if you can learn from that, that's awesome. That is great. But there's plenty of room in this space. So if you are interested in becoming a home coffee roaster on YouTube and you need a little guidance on how to get started with that, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you guys. Yeah, we've got 15 people here. If you give me a thumbs up, that would be awesome. You guys, give me a thumbs up. That would help us show up more in the limelight of YouTube and the feed for a home coffee roaster. Okay. Jekka Terine. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce your name too bad. Thank you for your comment. Thank you so much for your content. Really helpful. I'm getting closer to be a home roaster. That's awesome. I mean, there are people that watch my channel, and you're welcome. There's people that watch my channel that don't have a roaster. They're interested in it, and they're wanting to learn how to roast coffee at home. There's others that are pursuing the idea of doing this for a living. There's all different types of people and reasons why they watch my channel, but I'm glad that it's helpful for you. And I appreciate you being here and supporting me today on my first ever live. This is kind of weird. I was shaking like a leaf. I'm still nervous, but I'm so glad that I'm here doing this for you guys. George, it is a drum roaster. Yeah. So you're roasting on a drum roaster. So you're going really dark, George, and that's fine. That's great. But you don't need to worry about how long your dry phase is, because you're roasting. And for everybody who's roasting really, really dark, you don't need to focus as much on how long your phases, your dry phase especially, is, because you're roasting dark enough where most of the origin, not all of it, but most of the origin is turning more towards like a roastiness. And so that's okay. Yeah. All right. You're welcome. You're so welcome, George. Okay, here's a question from Mitch. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions about using the adjustable drum speed on the Behmor? Oh, man. The Behmor is, and I'll say it again, it's a great roaster. I am not really sure. I've been talking about this for a long time about the drum speed. The reason why we use drum speed on a drum roaster is for a couple of reasons. One is to prevent roasting defects. So that would be the bean laying against a hard surface of the drum and getting burned, scorched, right? We use the trick of increasing the drum speed on the Behmor with the idea of increasing air movement. And so I would say that that's the biggest reason why we would want to consider increasing the drum speed on a Behmor, is because of air movement. There is not a lot of air movement with the Behmor, and so we use the drum to be able to create that. When we roast coffee, there's really two factors that, two things that are roasting our coffee. There's conduction style heat, where the beans are touching each other or they're touching a hot surface. That would be like a frying pan, a hot drum like this. The cage of the Behmor would be another source for conductive heat. And then the other is convective type heat, where you have air, like in a convection oven, you have air that is being used to help facilitate the roasting process. So on the Behmor, I'm not sure you're going to get a lot of convection going on. There's not that much movement. The bead movement is going to help. It'll also help with roasting defects, because you can get scorching from that hot metal cage. It gets really hot, and I'm sure you know that because you probably touched it, Mitch, right? Probably burnt yourself like most Behmor users have. So yeah, the drum speed, turn it up on high if you want to do that. The thing that's a question is what happens when those beans get pulled up on the back of the drum. You turn the speed up, the beans start to come a little higher up on the back of that cage, and all of that coffee is being exposed to that radiant heat. So that's the one thing that I'm thinking about is, the radiant heat and its impact on the bean itself. That's a direct, it's like, imagine sunburn, getting sunburn on your skin. That radiant heat is providing kind of an element of sunburn on the beans, and I just don't know how much that's taking place. So if you have kind of a little bit of a burnt taste, or if you've noticed some defects on your green coffee or your roasted coffee that's in a Behmor, take a close look at your beans and see what you got going on there, because it may be that you're getting some roasting defects. And then you've got to experiment. Am I getting, using the same amount of heat, am I getting more or less roasting defects when I change my drum speed? So you should experiment and check that out and let me know what you think. Good? Okay, yep, thumbs up. I'm glad that was helpful for you. All right, yep, I'm glad my comment was helpful for you as well, Jekaterine. Thank you so much for being here today. All right. Okay, Steve. Hey, Steve. Great to see you here on my live. It's great to have you here. I love my Calde Forte 600 gram. Yeah, Steve, you've had that roaster for a while, and I know that it's done you well. I've heard some good things about the Calde. If you were to have to choose a different roaster, what would you use? What would you choose? I'd be interested to hear what your runner-up would be after the Calde. And why did you pick the Calde? Share that with me. I'd be curious to see what that is. All right. That's the one thing that's really cool about home coffee roasting is we have different types of coffee roasters, and it's hard to figure them out. And so it's cool to be able to see somebody else do it. And that's one of the reasons why I have more than just this coffee roaster here. I love my Mill City roaster. It's a great roaster, but I have a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot of things roasting coffee on that fresh roast, as well as my Behmor, and even the Hive too. I can't forget the Hive. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear what your runner-up would be, Steve, if you want to share that with me. All right, you guys, if you have, we've got another Calde lover here, John. John, same question to Steve. Why did you buy the Calde? And then share what your runner-up roaster would be. I'd be curious on why you bought that roaster, and then what would be another option if you didn't have the Calde. It's great to have you here today. Thanks for sharing that. All right, Steve, for the same size, it'd be the Cormorant. Okay, so the Cormorant, that's a drum roaster, right? That is I know the Calde is as well, but that's more of it's a little more substantial in weight roaster, isn't it? It's kind of like the Mill City, but it's probably the same size as the Mill City. Actually, yours has a larger capacity than mine. Mine's a 500 gram capacity, and yours is the 600. I know, Steve, you've mentioned before about venting, and I'd be curious if are you roasting in the garage? Yeah, I'd be curious to know what that is. All right. I really appreciate you guys being here today. If you have suggestions for home coffee roasting topics, if you want to share those in the chat, you can do that. Or if you want to send me a message, actually on the replay here, I think the comments will be turned on. So you can also share in the comments topics that you would like to see. I've got quite a few topics left that I plan on sharing. I will be sending out a community post to ask for suggestions for content that you'd like to see me do here. I've got some really cool coffees that I plan on roasting, and I'm going to be sharing with you guys. So that's some upcoming videos. I'm also hoping to work with some of these coffee roasting manufacturers. I've talked to these people, and I'm trying to get some roasters to be able to bring on the show here, bring on the channel, and do some roasts with them as well. It's always good to be able to see different types of coffee roasters. Yeah, it's all packaged together. Okay, all right. Thanks for sharing that, Steve. John, wanted drum, love to move up to a larger unit. Yeah, drum roasters, there's nothing wrong with air roasters, and the roasters that we're using, these 500 gram, 600 gram roasters, these are awesome roasters. We get some really consistent roasts we get some great coffee that we can generate from this. And I'm assuming you guys are hooked up to Artisan, so you're able to work with a lot of different profiles, and you're logging all of your roast. Is that right? Okay. What about your opinion on the ARC 800? I roasted for years on my Dietrich. The ARC 800. I've seen that roaster before. That's another drum roaster, right? I don't have any direct experience with the ARC 800. It's kind of, I know it looks different, but it's kind of a similar type of a roasting. It's a drum roaster like my Mill City 800 gram. Is that the capacity? 800 gram roaster. Yeah. So I don't have any direct experience about that. What's the price point on that roaster? I have no idea. And that's one of the things we're kind of limited by our own finances. Home coffee roasters, we're not making money selling our coffee. We're consuming it, unless we're kind of doing that on the side. So that might be a consideration. But that is kind of a restricting thing, is just the whole finances, the whole money part of it. And so I get that. So I'm curious what the price point is on that roaster. I made my own ventilation shaft collector system. Sweet. Yeah, that's cool. So the Kaldi doesn't come with a chaff collection system. Is it just kind of dump it into a tray and it's not that great? I forget. But yeah, sometimes we need to mod our roasters, don't we? John Price, it's $12,000. Holy cow. What does I don't know how you feel about Mill City, but a Mill City roaster, I don't think is $12,000 for a 1K, or is it? Maybe it is now. They've had their prices. Everybody's prices have gone up. One of the things you want to think of when you buy a roaster is if it breaks, where are you going to get help? Where are you going to get support for that roaster? I know that there are some overseas roasters that people have bought, and they end up getting on a chat and trying to fix things. And I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I would really want to have a roaster where I know that if I run into trouble, I've got somebody that can help me with that roaster. Roasts 5 200-gram batches at a time. Yeah, so you're looking to find something with a little more capacity. Is that what's going on? That's a thing. I mean, even people that are roasting and selling their coffee, they have to decide on the size of the roaster that they want. Trevor could probably chime in on this. He would probably like a larger roaster, but larger roasters, there's complications. And for us that have small roasters and want to upgrade, if you're considering doing that, is it because you're selling coffee, or is it because you just need more capacity? If that's the case, then it makes sense to upgrade to a larger roaster. I would definitely want to keep the smaller roaster as a sample roaster. That would be a great option for you. John Price, I'm looking at a small batch coffee roaster, and I respect you and your opinion. Well, thanks. I appreciate that, John. Yeah. All of the reasons, all the things that I just said, if you're considering a roaster, there are a lot of options, and there's some inexpensive or fairly inexpensive options. In the roasting world, you can pay a lot of money for a roasting machine, all the bells and whistles. So if you want something automated, if you want something that is just a push button that you have a profile in it and it goes, all of those features are going to cost you. You can look at Mill City's offerings that they have, and you'll see that they've got two categories of roasters. They've got automated roasters and manual roasters. So if you want to be manually roasting or not, that in itself is going to cost you as well. So you should look around, do some shopping, and consider support if your roaster breaks down, especially the bigger roasters. You're definitely going to want to do that. Okay. All right. Lou, can you tell us anything about the sessions you attended? Yeah, I mentioned the Scott Rayo session. That was his master class. he basically went through everything from, roasting setup to, he talks about charge temperature. He talks about data logging. Between batch protocol, as I mentioned, was a big thing. He didn't really focus a whole lot on profiling. That would have been interesting. He did talk about that. And he talked about, as he was giving his presentation, he was answering questions from the audience. And so you've got all of these professional roasters in the mix there, and they all have specific roasters, and some of them can't do this or have this feature that others don't. And so they're asking for his opinion. His profession is a coffee consultant. He's also selling coffee now. So he's got a lot of resources. He's helped a lot of people, and so he's a great person to be able to ask questions to. And we're in that session, and so a chunk of that session got used up with those types of questions. The other session that I attended was the profiling workshop. We used the Ikawa. Trevor was in our group, so he set up, and we really couldn't craft our own profiles. They pretty much had set profiles that they wanted us to follow. And they did that intentionally because they wanted us to experience how the coffee flavors changed. So they had one roast that had an extra period of time in development compared to the first roast. They had another one that was a lighter roast, or it had a longer development. So they mixed it up, and we ended up with 4 different roasts. And it was really interesting to see my group taste the coffee. And you had some people that weren't able to taste as well, or they tasted maybe different notes than others. I don't have a really, really fine palate. So for me to try to express some of the nuances and some of the things that I'm tasting, it's a little more challenging for me than some other people. But it was really interesting to be able to hear other people express what they were tasting. And so that was really cool. The person that shared and instructed the class was they weren't a cafe owner, but they were a roaster for a pretty well-known cafe down in Austin, Texas. I forget the name of the cafe, and they roast on a Loring. So she was talking about some of the differences in how she roasts. But ultimately, we got to experience all of the basic fundamentals that I've been sharing on this channel about roasting and profiling our coffee. Those same things were shared in that session. And I think what that did for me, there were some new things that I learned, but what that did for me was it kind of validated some of the things that I've been learning and some of the things that I've been doing here and even sharing on this channel. It kind of just reassured me that, I'm not out in left field. I'm in the right place, in the right spot where I just need to get better at what I'm doing. And I haven't arrived. I have got a lot more to learn, but I'm at a point where I'm able to produce some really good tasting coffee. And it was good to be able to hear the recommendations or the things taught in that class were very, very similar to what we've been talking about here on this channel. So pretty cool. Thanks for that question, Lou. All right, I got the Caldi because of the price and the availability. Yeah, so Steve, I'm sure you're happy with the Caldi. That's awesome. But that's why a lot of us, we have a certain amount of funds, and we have got a limitation of what we could pick. So, there aren't too many coffee roasters for a home roaster that are just horrible that I wouldn't recommend. But it sounds like the Caldi has been a great roaster for you, and I understand completely. I picked the Mill City. I did some comparisons, and I was looking at a Dietrich at one point, but the Dietrich was so much more money that I just couldn't justify spending that money. I couldn't afford it. And it was just such a big price difference. And honestly, I haven't really had any serious problems with my Mill City. I've got to repack the bearings or replace the bearings every once in a while on the front of the roaster. Not a big deal at all. And other than that, I think the next thing I'm going to be doing is replacing my probes based on some advice that I got from Scott Rayo. He shared that it's a good idea to update your probes every few years. So I get this rolling on my descent for my rate of rise, and one of the reasons could be my probe placement on my roaster. The other could be that the probe it's just time to update, or to get a new probe. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. John, yes, closed drum. So yeah, closed drum roasters are really cool. And John, as you start to look out and price, there's a lot of options, and the prices just go all over the place. All right, John, I asked, I think John's doing the Caldi, and I asked if he's using logging software, and he's using paper and pen to chart his roasts. You can do that. That is really a great exercise. I've done that here on this channel. Artisan is a great resource. It's a great tool. And some people, they just have to roast with it, especially if they're doing it for a profession. For repeatability and such, it really helps. But if you're charting your coffee, then you are paying attention to your roast, and that's really important. So that's a great exercise. I'm assuming, John, that you're able to, when it's all said and done, you're looking at your rate of rise, you're looking at those numbers, you're looking at your phase percentages and your total roast time. Those are all really important tools. Okay, is this the ARC 800 that is 5,295? John, is that the roaster 5,295? Let me know. Okay, and Steve's selling coffee. Okay, so Steve, if you're making money selling coffee, are you banking any of that for a bigger roaster? I'm curious to see what your next move is going to be. And are you doing this at like farmers markets, or are you doing this with friends? How are you selling your coffee? I'm curious. I'm not making that much. We could ask Trevor how he's doing, and he's roasting thousands of pounds. Yeah. I've never heard of people getting super rich on roasting coffee, but I know a lot of people that have a lot of joy doing it as a profession. Oh, it's not 12,000. It's 5,295. And what was that? Was that for which roaster was that for? Just to verify, John. It comes with one. Okay, so you basically made your own chaff collector system, so you didn't have to spend the $500. Very nice. Very nice. Sometimes that's what we need to do. We need to kind of come up with our own system just to save some money. All right, we've got a couple more questions here, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. The price is the reason I haven't moved up. Yeah, that is the big hindrance, pricing for roasters. And John drinks 1 to 2 pounds a week. Yeah, that's cool. We, in our house and within our family, and then the coffee that I'm roasting, well, let's just stay within our family. We're roasting probably about 2 to 3 pounds a week. I'm also roasting about 2 pounds a week, 2 to 3 pounds a week for our church. So I'm doing about 5 pounds a week, sometimes a little bit more of coffee. And what I love about that is it's time behind the roaster, so we get more experience. Yeah, John, thanks for all your help. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here on the stream. I really appreciate it. I think I paid $1,700 for the Caldi without the vent cooling system, shipped with tax 3 years ago. Yeah. So 3 years ago, even now, I bet you that price has gone up considerably. But that's a good price, especially for a 600 gram roaster. That's a really good price. Showroom coffee, crop to cup. Is that what your name of your business is, John? And yes, you are welcome. I'm grateful for your time. This is very cool. Much appreciated. You betcha. Yep. All right. We're going to wrap things up here. Last comment. Lou, I don't use pen and paper, but I use a voice recorder, then transfer the data to a spreadsheet, but we'll start using software soon. Yeah, multitasking when we're learning how to roast coffee, when we're learning how to use a new roaster, there is a transition. It was like when I first started doing videos here and I started roasting coffee, while I'm talking, I'm roasting and I'm sharing. That's why I screwed up on that. Why is the dry phase so important? On that video, I messed up. And it's because I was trying to multitask and I wasn't paying attention. But it was a common mistake. It was a great experience that I had. I learned from that. And you guys were able to learn from that too, I think. So, yeah. So, Lou, you got a bullet and you're going to start using your software soon. I'm excited to hear about that. All right, Steve, I mostly sell to friends and some of my customers. I work for myself doing home remodeling. I usually roast about 10 pounds a week. Okay, 10 pounds, that's a lot of coffee for a home roaster. When you're selling it, that's really cool. Are you going to leave it at that and just stay within that circle of customers? That's really cool. That's great. Yeah, I think sharing coffee, you guys, Steve, he gets direct feedback from his clients on how he's roasting his coffee. So he is kind of sticking his neck out when he's selling that coffee, but I'm sure that he's got enough time behind that roaster where he's got some really good coffee that he's selling. But that's what happens is, we stop roasting coffee for ourselves the way we like it, and we want to roast coffee for others so that they'll enjoy it as well. And there's a little bit of pressure there. Okay, the ARC 800 retail showroom coffee. All right. You guys, I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, share some feedback if you want to in the comments after this video live is done. I'll set it up so comments can be put on here. And also, when I do put out a community post, if you have recommendations for topics or even some different format other than what I'm doing now, please share that. So I appreciate you guys joining me today. Thanks so much for being here. And I hope you guys have a great week roasting. We'll see you next time. Take care. Have a great day. Bye for now.